Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the beautiful Carlsbad Foundation building in the city of Carlsbad, New Mexico. And this is Intrepid Potash sponsoring Faces of Carlsbad on Channel 23.
Oh, no!
And we're here. If you don't know what this program is by now, we have done 140 of these shows.
Yeah!
And we've introduced 140 nice people to you.
Amazing.
And if you don't know them by now, you are in deep trouble. Well, anyway, we have another lovely lady with us today, Amanda Melvin. Amanda, welcome to Channel 23 and the beautiful building here with all these beautiful artworks around you. Isn't this nice?
It's very nice. Thank you for having me.
Very comfortable.
Yes.
We're going to find out a little bit about Amanda, but I wanted to bring up something right now that people should know right away, that you are now the head lady at Main Street.
Yes.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, but in about 20 minutes or so, maybe 30 minutes. You know, it depends on how. Sometimes Guy, who's our cameraman, he gets so excited that he just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. And sometimes he falls asleep on the couch over there, and I have to wake him up. Isn't that sad, isn't it?
You could look at it two ways.
Okay. Anyway, in this show, Amanda, we follow your lifeline from where your grandparents came from and where your parents were born, and bring it right up to date.
Okay.
And then I throw in a few stupid questions that bring people alive again, and Guy, he gets a smile on his face. He likes to see me bring up stupid questions, you know. So anyway, tell me a little bit about your family background.
So where they came from.
Yeah.
All right. I have two parents.
No, let's go back even further than
Okay.
parents. Your grandparents.
Well, I have to start with them and then go backwards.
Oh, okay.
So I
well,
have a mother and a
yeah.
father.
Okay.
And both of those individuals come from two different places.
Ah, good.
But they met in the military. So that's what I find interesting. But anyway, to make a long story longer, we're going to start in Germany. Somewhere about 2 generations ago, 3 generations ago, is where my mother's family comes out of. And then my father's, we think he argues with me, he's either Scottish or an Irish, has a little bit of Native American, and then some other stuff in there. So I'm a Heinz 57, as they say.
Heinz 57
Yes.
and Native American.
Yeah, just a
On
little
Dad-
bit for me. He's got more.
On Dad's side.
And, okay, so then they went, let's see, Dad's from Illinois originally. He moved over to Loving with his father, who was a potash miner. And, of course, my Grandma Dorothy. So it's Grandpa Elvis and Grandma Dorothy Melvin. And then he went off to the military after he graduated, and that's where he ends up meeting Mom, who's from Dubuque, Iowa.
Oh, Dubuque.
Yes.
My roommate at Northwestern was from Dubuque, Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah.
They got a great Main Street program, too, there.
Oh, yes, indeed they do.
And so they ended up meeting in Colorado Springs. And then there was some longer years where Dad was in the military. This is before my time. I have a large group of siblings. My eldest sister is Melanie, and I can't age her, but I'll say that she's old enough to have been with them during the military time. And then I have James, who's my older brother, and we have Monica, who comes next, then me, and then Patrick.
Now, your dad, he was in the military, you say?
Yes.
And he was stationed where?
Yeah, lots of places, but he was Army. So I know from the stories I hear, he was in the Vietnam War, so he was also in Germany, Panama, Colorado Springs. I think they were in New Jersey too. I hear the stories of that.
Yeah, Camp Kilmer, New Jersey.
Yeah.
That's an overseas shipping port when I was in the military. I shipped out from there.
And Mom was in, I think, Kentucky, because she was talking about how hot it was, or maybe it was Alabama, somewhere like that, where she did her basic, or boot camp, as she calls it, and then came over to Colorado Springs.
Was that during the Vietnam period, or?
Oh boy. Yeah, they would have been, I have to do the math here, probably around 62, 63.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now we come up to your siblings, your brothers and your sisters. Tell me about where do they live now?
Well, the part of the reason I'm back here is because a lot of them live here. Melanie, the eldest, she lives here in Carlsbad. She's now Melanie Hobbs. and her husband, my brother-in-law, is Chuck, or Charles.
Hmm.
And then my other brother, James, he works with my father's business, and he's here in Carlsbad as well. And then there's Monica, who's married to my brother-in-law, Kenny. He's over in they're in Las Cruces.
Yeah.
And then Patrick as well, who is here in Carlsbad.
That's a nice family.
Yes.
But I never see them except for you, because every time I see Mom and Dad, your mother is such a nice lady. She's so gracious. But he's always got something funny to tell me. So does that sound like Dad? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're great travelers, aren't they?
They are. They're heading to New Zealand next week.
Next week.
Yes. And they just came back from Russia, which I'm actually wearing some perfume that she brought me.
I heard about that. They asked me about that, a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I've been to Leningrad, which is now called St. Petersburg.
That's right.
But when I was there, it was called Leningrad. And the Russians didn't particularly like visitors at that time when I was there. Did he find Russia a very interesting place to be?
From what I understand, they enjoyed it immensely.
Good.
I guess things have changed quite a lot. But
Yeah.
they took one of those river boats to
Yes.
take you
Oh,
in, so
yes.
St. Petersburg and then to Moscow.
Yeah.
And I actually had a acquaintance who I know who works for a global company that was there during the time when they went. So they were able to connect with him on one day and get to see a little bit more of Moscow than you would on the tour. So that was a good addition,
Yeah.
I think.
I bet Moscow, I haven't been to Moscow, but I bet it's a very beautiful city from what I can
That's,
gather.
yes, from what I heard. I haven't been there either.
Yeah. Are you interested in traveling the way Mom and Dad are?
Oh, that's interesting. I like a little different. I think theirs is really about taking in the wonders and enjoying things, and it's more of a vacational way of looking at things. If I travel, I like to do it more with a purpose, an intent to go somewhere. And if it's I went to Ho Chi Minh City, which used to be Saigon,
Yeah.
but that was for a business feasibility study. I've been to Malaysia, but that was also back when I was doing a feasibility study. So when I travel, I like to do it with some purpose, because I find that if I go in there with that premise, I learn a lot more than I would when I travel as a tourist.
Yeah. So you've been to Ho Chi Minh City.
I have.
What was your opinion of it?
Oh, wow. So like I said, I was there at the time. I don't know if I should say this on TV, but I was studying microbrew and whether or not it was feasible to introduce it to the city and that area. And what I found is they're really moving towards this capitalistic approach in their economy. So along the streets you'd find, commodities being sold, and every blanket would have the same thing being sold, and the competition was more for getting your interest in the person than, of course, the item. The sell price was the same.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a bit, it was enthusiastic. Everyone was smiling everywhere we went. We even went to an orphanage outside of town. And that was a little bit of a sadder story, but at the same time, there was a really good shining, lining to that, because they were doing so much to help these orphaned kids. But yeah, so my impression is what I'd say is they're at the very, maybe a little bit more into the beginning of bringing about this capitalistic economy. And so seeing that was refreshing.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And it used to be called Saigon.
Yes, and depending on who you talk to, it still is.
Yes, I know. And there's a lot of people who still look fondly back at the government they had in those days. And the war took such a tragic toll on so many countries, especially Vietnam itself and our country. But anyway, that's all. Now we're at peace with them, and thank goodness for that. And eventually, hopefully we can reach peaceful agreements with all the countries of the world. Everybody can get along.
That would be
And then
ideal.
everybody can be like your mom and dad and jump on a plane or a ship and just take off and enjoy it.
Yeah.
You mentioned New Zealand. They're going to really enjoy New Zealand.
You've been there as well?
Yes, my favorite country
Oh.
of all the ones I visited.
Everyone I have spoken with that have been to New Zealand have said the same thing.
I
So,
just loved it.
I worry though about because they're my parents. I always worry. But I mentioned I know there's a lot of earthquakes there.
Well, that's true, but you live with it.
Mm.
And I remember being in the South Island, and in that beautiful city that resembles London, England, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they had that earthquake. But I fell in love with that place too. Everything about New Zealand to me was beautiful, including disappearing from my family at the time and getting on board the train in Auckland and going to Wellington, and made friends with the engineer of the train.
Mm-hmm.
And when we took off, my family thought I had been kidnapped. And when we finally got halfway down toward Wellington, I got out with the engineer, and he wanted to just relax for a moment. And when my family saw me there, they said, "How did you get here?" And I said, "We have friends. I have friends on this train." And they were very upset and jealous with me from that point on, because they knew I had special seat up there with the engineer in the cabin of the engine.
That is a privilege,
Yeah.
for sure.
No, but I've liked England, another country, and Ireland, Scotland, Iceland. Almost every country I've gone to, I've liked, and
Well,
I
if you
thought
keep
was
talking
beautiful.
like that, I'm going to want to go more to just see the sights than to have a
yeah.
purpose.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, one of the most spectacular places you've got. Have you ever been to Pisa, Italy?
No.
Leaning Tower?
No.
That will sweep you away.
Okay, so if I was making a bucket list, give me your top three.
My top three, first, of course, is New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Second is Scotland, especially the Northern Highlands.
Okay.
And third, Samoa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when I was in Samoa, that's where Robert Louis Stevenson, he was one of my favorite authors when I was a kid growing up. He's buried there. And the house is kept exactly the way it was when he was alive. And there's a hill at the top of the hill, that's where he's buried. And I climbed that hill, and I told my daughter and my wife, I said, "Boy, this is taking a lot out of me. If I drop dead right now, just put me beside Robert Louis Stevenson." But it's a beautiful, beautiful island. And Japan, I was stationed there for over a year, and that's another beautiful country with Mount Fujiyama.
Yeah.
I tried to climb that, but I never got to the top. The elevation got to me, and I just had difficulty breathing. So I got halfway up, and at least I got halfway up.
So how high have you been?
I would imagine 12,000 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's high enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I did, the 14ers are very popular in Colorado where I've been.
Mm-hmm.
And got up to about 13.2. Never made it all the way to the 14.
No,
on
it
the
really takes it out of you, doesn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, it does.
Well, what got you interested in becoming a Main Street director?
That's a great question. I would say my education experience through the last 14, 15 years is what brought it to head as far as what made it so attractive. Because of the Main Street's 4 points and their approach to revitalization being what I consider a balanced approach, looking at things such as the promotion of a community, the organization of different stakeholders, the board, the partners, the merchants, all those things. So I'm giving you the 4 points as I go. Promotion,
No, that's good.
organization.
That's good.
And then we also have the design, which is really keeping the integrity of what you've seen with historic downtown areas. They've changed over time, but if when I look at downtown and what I see, it's really that sharing of walls. So it has that, without the strip mall appeal, it has that same kind of flow to it, but then it has that historical face.
Right.
So that was really intriguing. And then of course the last one being the economic restructuring, that's where I have the most fun. I like anything that deals with business development. Specifically, I enjoy small to mid-sized business development. My background is in business, and then as far as coaching small businesses to make them viable. And so it was like, wow, this is a way to bring in my nonprofit background as well around development and specifically working with different populations and communities, and then bringing in that business piece. So it was the Main Street's approach that really attracted me. And then Carlsbad, that's where my family is.
Yeah, and Carlsbad, I fell in love with this state when I first came here. Of course, my loyalties is always to my home state in sports, but
What is that?
that's Ohio. Akron University and the University of Ohio State University and the Cleveland Browns, and which is a team that's not very good. Cleveland Indians, they were better this year, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're terrible.
So
But
you're Drew Carey. I remember
Yeah.
he used to always post
Yeah,
those.
yeah. But when it came to coming to this state, I fell in love with it the minute I crossed the border. And I don't care what they say about these other states here in this western part of the United States. I'm very proud of our state of New Mexico
Mm-hmm.
and Carlsbad.
Yes.
And as far as the heat is, it bothered me when I first got here, but you get used to it.
You do. You do. I will say I was in Colorado for 13 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me at least 3 years to acclimate to their elevation, which is probably longer than most. And I found that during the cold season, once that real cold kicked in, I would have to come down. I literally would come down here to Carlsbad and be here for almost a week just to get that sun and warm up.
Yeah.
Because once you're, and especially I think when you're raised here, it never comes out of you. You
No,
always
I
need
know it. Years ago, I liked winters, and I did not like the hot summers. But in the last couple of years, I'm missing the summer, and I'm not looking forward to winters anymore. And we're not hit as hard as some of these states.
Well, I will tell you, my friends still in Denver, they told me that they're going to be getting possibly some feet of snow this weekend. And I was just kind of like, oh, it feels so nice. We're having a little bit of drizzle, I hear, and it's going to be a bit cold.
Yeah.
At least I'm not stomp through snow. Unless I'm skiing, I'm not a big fan.
Well, I was talking to a gentleman a couple of days ago, and he came down from Alaska, and he said he called up, and this was in the month of October or November. I don't even know what month it is, so don't even worry about that. But anyway, he said he called up to where he lived before, and it was 11 degrees below zero. And this was at 8 o'clock in the morning, so you can imagine what it was at night.
It is so,
Yeah.
when you're not used to it. I still remember, we moved to Littleton, Colorado when I left in 2000. And just walking in and feeling that first 9 degree, it wasn't below, it was 9 degree Fahrenheit. And I remember I literally felt it go and hit my bones. That's how I describe it.
Oh, my
I
gosh.
turned around and walked back in the door and said, I'm not ready for this.
I can sympathize with that, let me tell you. So this job is, you work with a board, I suppose, so you have a board, and it's got to be good teamwork on these boards, isn't it?
It does. I will say what attracted me when I did interview for the position, that's, as they say, it's a joint interview, and having the four that interviewed me, and then they later, of course, go through the voting process. Every one of them made such a good impression. I thought this is a good board to work for.
Yeah.
I'd say all of them are vested in what Main Street's dedicated in doing. We have a farmers market as well, as you know, that we sponsor.
Very popular, yes.
And they come from a diverse background. So you get individuals who, our president Margaret Berry, she is a fiber artist, and she came to Main Street as the farmers market committee chair. Now we have Sharon Williams, who's a crafter there, who took on that committee role, and she's been added to our board. So they do a lot.
Now you've got the farmers market, and there are a few other things that you have too, don't you?
Well, part of that promotion piece is we do all the events that you see downtown around the fall festival, the trick-or-treating, where we have the costume contest in the courthouse.
Yeah.
And I know you're very familiar with the Electric Light Parade.
Oh, yes.
I believe you're the MC for that.
Yeah.
And what am I missing here? We just did a night of holiday wishes, which was that 4 to 8 p.m. event where they could come out at night and shop in our stores. And
Oh,
win
yes.
prizes.
I got involved in that
Yes.
a while
I
back,
remember
and
you were.
they punched the card and take the card down to near the bank down here, and who knows, you might win something.
Yes.
I never win
we
anything.
We had 13 prizes given out, so there were a lot of winners.
Yeah, well, that's nice. When I entered those things, I never expect to win, so I just enjoyed doing it. You know what I mean?
Appreciate your support.
Yeah,
We'll have
why?
to find some kind of honorary stumble prize for you.
Well, one of the stores stopped me and they said, do you get your nails fixed? Because we have a card that you can do and will save you money. And I said, I don't do that.
Well, you know, Bob, I hear that manicures are more of a health hygiene issue for everybody. You
Oh.
don't have to get them painted. You just
Yeah.
got to get them clean.
Oh,
And then you
okay.
get the paraffin treatment. Have you tried that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that's so nice. If you ever,
Paraffin.
oh my goodness, if you have especially in Carlsbad,
Yeah.
right? And in Colorado, it was like this too. But it's such a dry climate. And anybody, I don't think it's a gender specific thing, but it puts moisture back into your hand. They coat it with it feels like wax. And you hold it for 15 minutes and then they peel it off.
I'll have to mention that to Guy. I bet he would like that. Yeah.
He
Perfect.
probably already tried it.
Oh, he's already
It's a popular thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, what do you do in your spare time when you get home and you can relax a little bit?
Well, I'm still figuring that out because you jump into your community. You're like, okay, what's interesting to me and what do I want to do? I've joined the gym finally, and that's the good thing. So I do like to exercise and stay in shape because when I want to go out to hike at Guadalupe National Park, I need to be able to hike it. And so that's one thing I do for fun. I like to read, of course, and I write for fun. I do a creative writing technique using mythology and psychology and things of that sort. And I also teach the subject. So I have some people who participate in those kind of things, so that it keeps me busy.
Now, what kind of books are you interested in?
As far as reading, well, it's funny because when you were talking about how your favorite author was buried in Samoa, I was thinking about how James Joyce inspired me. And I actually, my undergrad is in English, so a lot of my reading was required reading to get my degree.
Oh my.
And so, so I will say when you have to read, it's not as fun as when you stumble across something. But it was the idea of going, and that's one of the trips I'd like to do, is to go and follow Bloom as he goes through Ireland and Dublin and see exactly the bridge where he leaves the letter. And so those kind of things. Yeah, I'd say James Joyce is one. Modern, I don't read as much fiction. I'm really doing a lot of nonfiction lately. More on things such as organization theory, development, revitalization.
The technical things, huh?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm really, that's where my mind is right now.
That's wonderful, because not many people get involved in that type of thing.
Yes. I'm trying to get back into fiction, though. I find that if I go and watch a movie, sometimes based on a book, like the one that's coming out, that's really popular among the teenagers, it's the Hunger Games.
Oh, is that the name of it?
Yes. It's not the name of the second one. The first one, I believe, was Hunger Games. So I thought, I'm going to go watch that. And I enjoy the story.
Well, I don't get involved with what they're doing today because they're so far ahead of me that I just stay back. And for example, on television, I watch Dragnet, which was popular back in 1969, and Hawaii 8-0. What was it?
5-0.
5-0. Hawaii 5-0 with Jack Lord and James MacArthur. And I enjoy the old shows. And that's why they call me an old fuddy-duddy,
Well, I don't watch much TV, so even if you discuss modern ones with me, I don't know a lot. I know 5-0 because that's one of Dad's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't watch much either anymore. It's disgusting. It's the same baloney over, and many of the shows that follow the ones that we did back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, they're not as good. And the language, they throw in language that I don't approve of.
Yeah, it's a lot of there's a lot of sensory stimulation too.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when I'm wanting to wind down from a day, to watch TV doesn't always work well with that.
Yeah, you're right.
It keeps me too hyper.
Well, you work long hours too, because you not only work your regular hours during the day, but you're working in the evening on a lot of things.
You can call it work. I mean, ultimately, somewhere along the way when I was going through my career decisions and going to school, and I worked the 9 to 5. I worked the longer hours, the really long hours. They say government workers don't work, but they do in this case.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So for my case, I think it was really about finding work I love, and for the last 5 years, and even into this position, it's really been lining things to do that. And so. Work is a good thing for me, and even in the evenings when I'm doing things, it's a pleasure. It's not. It's been only. I was thinking even in the last since I've been in this job, when I feel something is work, I can usually put my finger on what it is, and it's usually something where I have to duplicate an effort, and I'm going really, I try to keep efficiencies. It's probably a little too much information, but as long as things are efficient and they're flowing, I'm feeling good.
Good. And 95% of the time, things are going well, you think?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
I will say with Main Street, we have so much collaboration happening throughout the community that, I think I get a lot of the FaceTime, but I will say it's definitely not, when you see any one event, it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Michelle Robertson, she's the assistant director at Carlsbad Main Street. She is fully in charge of our event planning.
Yeah.
With every event, we track volunteer hours because that's one of the things we're expected to do in our state reports. There's a tremendous amount of volunteer hours, and you know, I'll share more on that when we get those final numbers. But so yeah, it's that part is not as.
Well, it's nice to get people that you can have faith in who will come through for you.
It was. I received that walking in the door, and that was she's been a great treasure to have.
And I'm sure Mom and Dad are very proud of you. I know they are because I've talked to them about it.
Well, that's unfair because, you know, I will say one of the wonderful things I've had through life is the unconditional love. So Mom and Dad are usually proud, and Mom and Dad are usually, you know, it's always a loving thing. So I thought, you know, even if I do something bad, because that unconditional love, bad meaning, I don't know if I would know it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll let me know, right, Bob?
Right, absolutely, okay. Because I keep in touch with your parents.
Yes.
And, well, you know, I've known your parents for many years, and they're such a nice duo. Yeah. They're just like a team. Teamwork shows up in your mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And every so often in recent years, he's asked me, well, where are you traveling this year? And then I'll tell him, and then he'll tell me where he's going. And I knew about this Russian trip, but I forgot that he was going to be taking a New Zealand trip shortly after that. Yeah. And I thought to myself, my gosh, I bet he doesn't own many dogs or cats.
Oh, thanks for bringing that up. There's another perk to me coming to town, I think. Mm-hmm. I've been on dog and cat duty when they go on their trips. And so it's but the dogs and cats are really sweet, so I don't mind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do have a lot of dogs and cats. They have Molly, who's a Staffordshire Terrier mixed with a Labrador, and she is a darling. But she is one big dog. Then we have Prancer, who's a small little weenie dog and completely, unfortunately, overweight. So he's on a diet. And then there's a Batu, and he's named actually after a cave. I got the pleasure of naming him in Malaysia.
In Malaysia,
so,
huh? Batu.
Yeah, the Batu Cave. So that's his name. He kind of looks like a bat. So big ears. Yeah. And he's a tiny little, what do they call him? Pomchi. Mm-hmm. So all sizes. And we, of course, have to feed them all in their separate area, that's a little bit of a work item. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cats. 2 are indoor. The other 3 actually prefer to be outdoor. They're more the feral hunters. Mm-hmm. And the 2 indoor, there's, as my mother calls him, Prince Sebastian. Yes.
Prince Sebastian.
Yeah.
That
You'll
is...
have to, when you tease Dad, ask about Prince
Sebastian.
I'm
going to.
He runs the house. And then there's Guinevere.
Oh
she
my
does
God.
whatever Prince Sebastian wants her to do, I think.
I think more and more people are naming their animals after famous people. Sam, he runs the local movie theater. Mm-hmm. We interviewed him a while back, and he has a kitten that was saved by a young student at Leva School, and he named him Dorian Gray after that movie, Dorian Gray, the one who never grew old, you know.
Yes.
And he's quite a cat. That cat is quite a cat.
They have such personalities.
But
it's amazing.
Prince Sebastian.
Yeah. So he has his own table in the kitchen.
Oh.
And there's
wow.
So Dad has invested in a water bottle.
Yeah.
And so Sebastian has decided he likes water. So it's used as a deterrent, of course, you know, because my mother says, Prince, you know, that's Sebastian's table, Jim. Mm-hmm. And Dad says, no, cats aren't allowed on the table. So he'll go and get his water bottle, and he'll pick it up, and Sebastian will see it, and he'll wait a little while, and then Dad will finally shoot it. And Sebastian will, of course, play game, and, I'll get off. So as soon as Dad walks out of the room, right back on the table. But it is his table. And that's been, you know, clear. My dad just hasn't accepted that yet.
Well, he's going to have to accept it, that's for sure.
They have their dining table, so he's not allowed on that one.
So do you get any time off from the job? Because I know it's a busy one.
I do. Well, let's just say weekends when we're not having events. I get time off there, and of course my evening hours. And I do have vacation when I want to use it. And so let's
Oh,
see,
good.
I actually went up to a Santa Fe conference. It was crazy. I had a weekend. I mean, it was a Friday training in Albuquerque for Main Street. I had to turn around and present in Santa Fe on Tuesday for our Arts and Cultural District application. So I actually went from Albuquerque, spent a weekend in Denver, and then came back to Santa Fe. So that's how usually I can find ways to, enjoy myself and also do work.
Now, they're not going to put you under that schedule during the winter time up there, are they? Because I would worry about you driving.
I have one in December.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, December 13th, so let's hope there's no snow.
In Santa Fe?
That one will be in Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, okay. I always worry about nice people like you going to those northern areas during the winter time because you never know what you're going to run into.
Oh, I have to tell you, one of the jobs I took while consulting was going to tribal nations in Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota. We tried to get it during a time where we weren't going to have the snow, but in North Dakota it snows so early that I actually ran into some of that. So I've been through some pretty bad snow. I hope, I don't know what Albuquerque looks like. Actually, I take that back. I do know I was there one year when I was taking my LSAT at UNM. And it was actually, I actually put that in my law school application that I was coming out of a blizzard when I took the LSAT.
Oh my gosh.
It actually got me acceptance, so I thought maybe it was the blizzard that helped.
Now you mentioned tribal, what was that, tribal what?
It was a tribal, I was doing a consulting with the government on a tribal grant. It was actually I was going out and helping with healthcare and it was gathering data.
In the different tribal areas?
Yeah, so there was the Blackfeet, the Sioux, and different tribes across the region that they were focusing
Well,
on.
the reason I brought that up is because I support a Sioux tribe up in South Dakota at St. Joseph's.
Do you know which one?
St. Joseph's Indian
They
School.
might be the Flandreau.
Flanders?
Yeah, the Flandreau Reservation, and I'm thinking that might, because I
It could
think I
be.
remember saying, I didn't go to the school, but I knew somebody else who supported them, and they said if you get a chance, stop by the school, see how they're doing. It was very quick roundabout.
Yeah, I was invited up there a couple of weeks ago, but you know, I got so many irons in the fire down here, I haven't had a chance, but I thought that was very nice. I think maybe they'll even adopt me into the tribe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good about that school, so
yeah.
I just haven't been
St.
able to
Joseph's
visit.
Indian School. Of course, that would be scary for Guy, you know, Guy Lutman.
Oh,
If, he,
tell me why it would be
if I
scary.
become an Indian warrior and he's wearing his cowboy hat, you know.
Oh, that might be a problem, but you know, you'd be a person of interest. They'd have to interview you. If
Yeah, that's right. No, I've got great faith in those people up there. They're so nice to me.
Yeah, it was a very valuable experience. Out of all my, I'd say, work that I've been part of, that one was a special treat because I was able to learn a lot about the culture. And I remember I was in the one up in Polson, Montana. I believe that wasn't the Blackfeet. I cannot remember the name of the tribe. It was a mixed tribe. But they had the chairs, all their chiefs from throughout the years painted on the gym wall.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Oh my
on a
goodness.
gym. And so I was like, oh my goodness, talk about historical, you know,
Gee whiz,
have to
that's
keep that one.
fantastic.
as far as building goes.
So anyway, you're going to be planning some trips for enjoyment in the future, I trust. Following in mom and dad's footsteps.
I may be going to Mexico in May. I'm debating if that's going to be a trip I want to take or, yeah. So it's being discussed. I'd also like to go to India, and I'd probably like to do that in the next 2 years.
India.
Mhm.
What's the intrigue that's drawing you to India?
I have a good friend who's Hindu, and he's from his family's from India. So I thought we would travel and get to see some sights. There's a really nice train called the oh my goodness, it's a Royal something train, and you just ride it through all those different ports. Because some places, as you know, are not always conducive to tourists in India.
No,
So you have to be a
no.
little selective, and
Yeah.
this train along takes you to, and of course the Taj Mahal. I want to see that.
Well, I've been to India. I've been to Mumbai, which used to be called Bombay,
Wow.
and I landed in Delhi, but I didn't stay. They opened the door up, and I said, "Where are we right now?" And she said, "This is Delhi," and the humidity. And oh boy, it
What
just
time of year were you there?
in June or July, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just think, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be up here shivering because it's winter,
Mm-hmm.
and your mom and dad are going to be in New Zealand where it's summer.
And do you know what's fun about all that? When they were in on that boat in Moscow,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the opposite, it was really nice and warm here.
Mhm.
They actually had a cold front where they were at.
Yeah.
We were Skyping.
Is
So
it?
I was seeing them
Yeah.
in, it's just technology. It's so impressive. So I'm sure I'll get the same treat when they're in New Zealand. And you're right, I'll probably be the one shivering and I'll be a little jealous versus last time I was all a little snickery.
No, it's funny though, when you travel and you fall in love with a certain place,
Mm-hmm.
you can still see it.
You can.
And in my mind, it never leaves you.
Well, see, that's how I feel about Kuala Lumpur. Because when I was there, it was the food. And I realized that my big attraction to places is the food and the different spices. And they had such a, what do you want to call it, a confluence of culture right in one area
Yeah.
that you could have everything almost across the globe in that one place and try it.
And Kuala Lumpur
Yeah.
is in Malaysia?
Yes.
Yes. That's not is that the capital city
Oh,
now? I
gosh, you
can't
asked me
remember.
that. I think
Near
so.
Singapore.
I just remember flying over the rubber
Yeah, yeah.
trees.
That part of the world is very, very nice, but the humidity is so weakening on the human body. That's the problem.
And it's great for the skin and the hair.
Yeah, yeah.
I came back looking very refreshed, I remember from that. Now, I tell you, the thing that you have to watch for, and I don't know if you found this in your travels, but with the different air quality,
Yes.
that's what I find is harsh. Is not so much as bad in Malaysia, it was worse in Saigon or Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah, yeah. Did you get to Thailand at all?
We stopped in the airport.
Mhm.
That was it.
Thailand's a beautiful country too. Yeah, I mentioned that.
That's what I've heard.
The thing that bothered me about India, and I met a lot of nice Indian people, but the poor people were sleeping out on the sidewalks at night in Mumbai, and it really made me feel sad because they had no place to go.
Yeah, I just read it that they're I think they're the second, as far as ranking goes, for most condensed cities in the world as population. So
Yeah,
I can't imagine what it is walking outside and you don't even have room to have your own space.
no, I know it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, you don't have that here in Carlsbad.
No, it's nice having
get-
space, isn't it?
The interesting thing, though, I find, it's Main Street. It's Main Street.
Mhm.
It's Main Street. But the street is not called Main Street. It's Canyon Street of course, we include Main Street.
Yes.
And we include Canal Street.
Well,
That's good.
It's the Main Street district.
Yeah.
And you're right. It could be confusing if you take it from Main Street. And we go all the way from Shaw to Green over to Haleguino. We do include the museum and the
Oh,
library.
okay, good.
And then we go over to Maine.
Oh, good. Okay.
So it's a fairly good-sized district. And it has, on top of that district, we also have a historically significant district. So as you know, in the Main Street district, we have two historical buildings. One
That's
used to be the
true.
old bank building, which is now the Trinity.
Yes.
The other one is the Eddy County Courthouse. And then we have the district on top of that. So most of the buildings within the district are considered historically significant.
And that's so nice, too, to see this. In our library, we have some trees that have been there ever since the library was
Oh, my
built.
And talk about a fascinating story. That's something, when we're talking about what we're going to be doing in Main Street next year, one of the things I'd like to see is a storytelling around that history. Julia Heaton, I went with her when I went to Santa Fe. She was helping us present on the Arts and Cultural District because she represents the Fine Arts and
Yeah.
Vetting Committee. And she took it upon herself to go and look at that history. And I learned about a man, I cannot remember his name, I'll have to bring up the history, who guarded a fountain that was down there in the middle of the library where
Mhm.
Haleguino Arts Park is going to be.
Hmm.
And apparently, once he was no longer guarding that, it went into disrepair in the history. And there's just so much small little stories around that fountain alone, including over where, if you remember, I think it's the old hospital that used to be.
Oh,
in that
yes,
area.
yes, which is now the police department.
Yes, they were doing some, I guess, some underground work when they were putting that all together,
Mhm.
and they found some underground water. And in that water they had blind carp or goldfish.
Oh.
They don't know where they came from. So there's speculation that when that fountain went into disrepair and the fish, the water receded, the fish were no longer, no skeletons, nothing to be found, that they found a way to go through the waterways into that area.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of fun history there that I think as Main Street we really need to bring attention to when we're talking about Halloween Arts
Yeah.
Park.
Have to bring that up in the newspaper and let the people know what's going on here.
Yeah, we're going to get that history, and we'll actually be putting it up on the website. And like I said, she put it together, and it'll be. We appreciate that, but bringing in the other history as well that we have from. Have you been to that site, Round Loving's Bend, that Jed Howard was doing?
No.
Oh my goodness, over 1,000 photos, and a lot of them we have the people who were in Main Street back in the 70s, the 50s. I was looking at Walter Gerald's. He's standing there with Forrest, and it's a great black and white picture. They're both standing here on Canyon Street. I thought that just shows it. So I have to go and pull out some of those too and put those on our website.
Walter Gerald was a wonderful mayor. He was the one who put me on the library board 34 years ago, and I'm still on the library board.
And you know these stories, I'm sure. Who
Yeah.
was the man who would guard the fountain?
Well, I knew your brain has it. Well, not your brain, but my brain has a tendency to go blank all of a sudden, and I can't remember it.
I
But
heard those are called senior moments. Is that correct? Is that the same phenomenon you're expressing?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I think I'm starting to get them.
No, you're too young. You're too nice. You won't have. You won't
I
have
have
it.
these moments where I go blank and I'm thinking, uh-oh.
But isn't it embarrassing when that happens?
It does. And it's normally when I'm trying to recall a name.
Yes.
And it'll come to me in the middle of the night.
You're absolutely right on that. Well, we were notified that we had only 5 minutes, and it's gone 10 minutes now, and I think he's forgotten all about us.
Well, there you go.
Well, we can keep talking
We've
if he.
enjoyed our discussion.
Yeah,
Why not?
yes. And one of your parents, they're going to be leaving in November, December, January?
They're leaving next week.
Next
and
week.
then they'll be, I think for 2 weeks, they'll be traveling.
Are they going by ship or flying out there?
Let's see. They're flying into Australia. I think they'll take something over to Sydney. And then I can't remember where they fly into. And I remember that this...
Probably Sydney is.
Is that where they fly?
That's
Okay, and then
the
they take a boat out to New Zealand.
Yeah. Boy, they're going to have a ball.
Yeah.
I
It's
can
got-
just.
If I was asked my dad is top one, I'm going to guess, because like I said, they've been a lot of places, but Cape Horn, have you done that yet?
No, I have not.
That
No, I have
sounds
not.
like it's worth it when I'm thinking about boats.
Well, I want to tell you that I have really enjoyed having you here today, Amanda. This has been a real pleasure, and all I can say is that you're going to do a good job. I know that. Now, whether I do a good job or not, that's debatable.
Well, you've been doing a good job
Yeah,
for
well-
over, 40 years here,
Okay.
so I have full faith in you, Bob.
Well, I want to thank you for being our guest today, and you take good care. And on behalf of everybody at this beautiful building here, Channel 23 and Intrepid Potash, we want to thank all of our fine viewers for spending time with us. Goodbye and good luck. Yeah, we can shake hands, credits.